immediately, and have been in the industry so long and working with such amazing people. I work with like Hyperact and the heads of state and Volume and Open and Louise Feely, and lots of other people that are not as well known. But I work with like designers, incredible people. So I've been really honored because I can, wear jeans and curse, which is awesome. So, as a consultant, I help with planning your business for the future, essentially helping you with pricing and staffing and project management strategies and new business strategies, and supporting you as you need to grow your firm. Which leads me nicely to this topic, because I always start this topic by saying something that I think is a little controversial, and judging from some of the people who registered and how they describe themselves, I might get some angry people responding, but I love controversy, so it's cool. So my big thing that's going to drive a lot of what we're talking about is this word freelance. Basically, I think the word freelance has a lot of implications, both internally within yourself as well as externally to your clients. Freelance, and this is both my opinion and something that I've learned from being in the industry so long, and you obviously might have a different perception, but to me, freelancer is somebody that works usually hourly, that's under the direction of somebody else. And that's a big one. So whether you're being art directed by somebody who's another designer or who's a client who just loves to art direct, when you work hourly and when you work as a freelancer, you're treated very differently. You're treated essentially as a vendor. And a lot of people who think who want to hire freelancers want them to work on site. So there's a lot of perception issues. So I never use the word freelance for any of my clients. I don't work with freelancers. I work with design firms. And that means you can be a solopreneur, which is a one-person firm, but you are working as a firm under your direction for your client's behalf, if that makes any sense. So that just gives you some general feeling about where my pricing and recommendations are coming from. And then I have some core ideas that I want to talk about, as well as then I'll give you 10 strategies for pricing. And I'm trying to cover a lot in a little bit of time. I also have a tendency to talk fast because I'm a New Yorker. So forgive me, I'm hoping to talk a little bit slower. And so I'm hoping your questions will also help clarify anything that maybe I sped over too quickly. This is also a complex topic because pricing is something that's very difficult to talk in isolation about, because it has a lot to do with how you position yourself. It has to do with new business. It has to do with how you frame the price, so your proposals and your contracts. But for now, I'm going to try to talk about pricing a little bit in isolation. Hopefully during the Q&A, we can talk more about contextualizing the kind of pricing that you do. So a few kind of foundational points of view. One is that clients, for the most part, and this is based on lots of data and lots of kind of experience working with my various clients, that most clients or prospects will choose designers mostly based on trust. Your price is not that important at all. If the client adores you and truly loves you and has met you in person or has talked to you and has made a personal connection with you, they will do all they can to work with you. They will fall in love with you if you're a lovable person, which most designers are. So if you could do one favor for me, which is to stop worrying so much about price and spend more time worrying about, did I build a relationship with the client? I think designers have a tendency to just avoid contact at all costs. They just want to do cool design, and they don't spend a lot of time really building relationships. And that could be, if it's clients abroad or clients that are not local, it could be virtual as well. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Don't be afraid to go on Skype. It's really important to make sure that they have a face behind the firm, because if they've seen you and met you, then they will have much more trouble rejecting you. And this is the big one, if they adore you, then price becomes just a discussion, which means if you're too high, they will tell you that you're too high because they want to work with you. And I get this almost once a month, clients will actually say you're too low.
Wow.
Because they want to work with you and they know what a pain in the ass their company is, right? So they want to also be your advocate and defend you and say, look, you better price it a little bit higher, or we have a little bit more money, let's just price a little bit higher just in case. And I hear this quite a lot. So if you can spend more time making sure the client loves you, That's the most important thing. There will always be somebody that prices lower than you. So get over that as well. There's always going to be that person that prices low, goes at $300. And maybe several of you are on the phone right now. There's just going to always be. It could be a niece. It could be, the client's niece. It could be the client's husband. It could be a student. But it also can be a famous design firm or well-established or large design firm or agency. Because a lot of times those firms, and there's a few, I think Rachel and I know who I'm going to talk about, but I'm not going to say names. There are a few agencies that are notorious for this because they have huge, juicy, big budget projects, but they want the smaller, more kind of cool projects just for their portfolio and for their staff's morale. So they will greatly underbid to win some of these projects. So don't be kind of flustered by just like trying to find that magical number and being the lowest price, because you're not going to be. There's no magic number, and you're never going to be able to guess the lowest price. I've been in this industry 20 years, and I'm always shocked almost every day by the numbers I hear. The other thing is that if you have clients that value price over anything else, then I would avoid them like the plague. It's a simple answer. If the clients only talk about price and I've heard this happen where they haven't gone to your website, they don't care about meeting you to see your work, they don't want to even meet with you in person or talk to you, those clients are going to be a pain in the ass. I'm just going to warn you, it's not even worth trying to convince them otherwise.
So that's a red flag.
That's a big red flag.
Okay.
I have a whole bunch of other red flags, but that's a whole other talk. Okay, so some tips. Meet in person. Always try to talk to them, engage with them, have them build the love is what I constantly say. Build the love, and real love. So spend more time with those relationships and less worry about the price. I think designers spend so much time worrying about the price, and it's just not worth it because I'm just going to say it's not. And the other thing is, don't be afraid of asking questions, good questions. Designers have a tendency, all creatives have a tendency to want to avoid difficult conversations or avoid any kind of conversations that are not cool. Like they want to talk about the strategy and the target audience and all those things that are very important, but they're more important when you start the project. But what you need to first do is ask good questions that frame your fee. So whatever you need to know to help you determine that number, you have to ask those questions. And so don't be afraid to ask good questions and as many questions as you possibly can. And don't believe that rule that says you only can call once with questions. You can call twice or 3 times if you need to. And don't ask questions by email. Talk to the person, because then if they don't answer the question, you could, reframe the question, or you can push them harder. So ask good questions, ask them in person. Don't give them surveys to fill out. And the last piece of advice is don't price hourly. So this is a little bit controversial with you guys. I can tell already from some of the comments on Facebook. And that is one of the 10 strategies, is not to price hourly. But basically the reason why I say that, and there's a perfect example, and I'm sure many of you have heard the Paula Scher story. Rachel, have you heard it?
I don't know.
It's a pretty famous story. So Paula Scher was Paula Scher of Pentagram. She's just in case there are people out there who don't know her, you should. She was hired by Citibank at the time when they had merged with Travelers and they became Citi. And she was out to lunch with them, the 2 CEOs. I think it was the 2 CEOs. I might be changing the story a little bit. And she was drawing while she was talking, as a lot of designers do. And she drew the logo solution immediately while talking to them, because she realized Citi had the Citi logo and the font. And then she took the umbrella from Travelers and drew it in 5 minutes. So does she charge for 5 minutes of her time? No. And that's the problem with charging hourly. She charges for the value of her expertise, the years of experience, her insight, as well as the value of the project. How important is the project to the client? So pricing hourly does not work. And the other reason is ideas, as you guys well know, ideas sometimes come in a moment of brilliance, and others you have to you're frozen. And so it takes months or weeks to get to the best solution, and your client shouldn't be punished either way. So hourly is not the best way to price, but I will talk about how you deal with hours. Okay, so those are my core philosophies and kind of general advice. I'm going to give you 10 strategies for pricing. They are in order of priority. So the first 2 or 3 are the most important, to the least important, but all of them together combined will help you come up with the best number. Make sense?
Great.
Again, knowing that there's no magic number here. So I am not, if you came here for me to tell you how much a book design is or how much a brochure is, I'm not going to give you numbers here because there's too many variables. And I'd be happy, that's what I do as a consultant, is help you with that. But really it's something that you, over time, using these strategies can come to a number that you feel the most confident in. And I wanted to say that again, confidence is key. I think the more you're confident in the number and how you present those numbers helps with pricing. So one strategy that I didn't even think about telling you, but I might as well tell you right now, which is really important, and this is not part of the 10, is to round off your numbers. So never price something like $3,506. Just looks hourly and it looks insecure. Price it at $5,000. Always round off to the biggest number you can. That number feels more confident, and the chance of the client detecting any lack of confidence or trying to negotiate will be less, because if they get a small, like a $3,600, they'll say, oh, just knock off the $600. You don't want to be a car dealer here.
Right.
Okay, so the 10 strategies. Some of this I've sort of mentioned already. Think value, not hours. And by value, I mean, this is not scientific. This is by asking the good questions. And it's mostly framed around usage. And value is the most important thing you need to know. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I'll give you examples. If you're pricing a restaurant, is it just one location, or is it 10 locations, or is it a chain? That has a different value. One location restaurant is not going to have a lot more value than a chain who's going to have a lot more value because they're going to make a lot more money and they're going to have a lot more locations. An event design, if you're doing an event design for a one-time event versus an event that gets repeated every year, that has a different value. If you're doing a logo for an internal brand that really isn't consumer facing, or you're doing a logo for a smaller brand versus a bigger brand, or an internal facing or external facing logo, there's lots of different variables. So you have to understand, ask questions about usage. Designers don't ask enough about usage.
So one thing about value is it's not only just the value to the client, right, Emily, but it's also more work from us, because obviously if it's going to be seen more, then we need to spend more time. Sometimes
it depends on how your creative genius comes about.
Okay.
And also it depends on how much you're promising. So the bigger the client, the more revisions and more concepts you present, because there's more key decision makers. It doesn't always align with the price, always. But it's something to consider. I would say that. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. So think value, not hours. Ask good questions about value and how it's going to be used, how many people are seeing it, how important it is to the brand, those kinds of things. Now, the second question you're all going to hate. The second point, you have to ask about budget. What is their budget? And I will tell you what you're going to tell me. I hear this from all my clients. Almost every single one of them has said this to me. I can't ask about budget. They never answer, so I've stopped asking. Right? Or they're not going to tell me, or they never have budgets. Well, I'm going to curse and say that's bullshit.